YouTube. So instead of doing my normal July TBR where I'm picking a select group of books to read, I am participating in the Deck of TBR-athon. I'll leave a link in the description below to the two hosts of the event. And this is the second year that they are hosting this event, and it's the second year I'm participating. When I was talking about picking a select amount of books, you can do a TBR for this reading event. In fact, last year when I participated, I was on the TBR group because you are put into two teams. Either you're the red or the black. And last year I was in the TBR group, and now I'm in the, I can't remember what they call it, but it's, you know, like going on based on your whim, what suits your fancy. So I am on that team this year. And so what you do is I have these like funny cards. But and here's like what they look like. But I pick a card, and it doesn't matter the suit or the color, it's just the number. And there are every number has a prompt, and so you can collect 1 point, 3 points, or 5 points for each card when you read the book, and you have to read at least 50% of the book for it to count. And so I've been keeping track because you want to submit your books, you know, as you read them or whatever, what have you. I'm trying to do them all in one go each week. So after I finish filming this, I'm going to be submitting mine, because then your points go towards, you know, your team. I can't remember what the prize is for the team that wins. Like, I don't get anything, you know, they're not going to mail me anything, nothing like that. But it's something to do with like the hosts. I feel like they're going to be doing something if their side wins, I think. Don't quote me on that. But so far I have, and I'm filming this on the 8th, and I have read a total of 11 books, and that means I have garnered 43 points. And so I'm trying to keep a tally, like the suit of the, you know, the number, not the suit, the number of the card, you know, 2 through ace, and then the amount of points I've collected for each one, and then I color coded it by day, so like how many books I've read each day for that prompt. So yes, I have 11 books. There's a couple more books on here because I'm still in the middle of them, but I wanted to do a weekly wrap-up of what I've read so far, and that will correspond with the cards. In the back of my mind, this is not a prompt at all for the event, but I'm like, it would be fun and challenging for myself, because for me, one of the reasons I really liked this reading event last year, is one of my favorite ones that I participated in, was like the whimsy of, because I was on the team TBR, but it's still like having the card, you know, designate or prompt you into picking a specific book off your TBR. It was so fun for me, like that chance that's involved. Also, what was really fun was competing with myself, because last year I participated, but I posted pictures on Instagram and whatnot, but and vlogged it, I think, or at least I did some videos, something like that. But all that to say, I didn't submit my points for my team. I was just kind of competing with myself. So this year, I'm actually going to be submitting my points. I'm not going to be silly and not do that. But I am more in competition with myself than I am the TBR team for this reading event. So in the back of my mind, I was like, it would be interesting and fun if I could get through all of these cards. I don't know if I can do it. Like right now, I have 11 cards chosen, or, you know, finished, and I have some that are on the go right now. I think I have 3 or 4 others on the go. So that's like 15, and we just finished week 1. So, I mean, I could get there in the 45. I could do it. So like, I can just push a little bit more and get to 52. We'll see. But yeah, this is more a competition for myself, because anytime, like in school and whatnot, anytime there's a competition, the sports, not me at all. I couldn't, you know, basketball or something like that. No. But when it's something like this, like whenever we had like the reading events in school, I was always like well beyond anyone else in my class. But it was just for the fun for myself. It wasn't like I was like trying to get ahead. It was just like, oh, give me a reading event or a reading challenge. Yes, sign me up, and I'm gonna do the best I can, kind of thing. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted, but I'm not gonna hate myself if I don't do that completely. But I think regardless, like going into August, if I have like 5 cards or something left, I can just use the prompts that the hosts have created and, you know, do those last remaining cards in August. Something like that would be fun. Anyway, so let's, all that preamble aside, now we can get into the books that I did in fact read. One of the reasons I wanted to, I was really gung-ho on this event is because the other two reading events I was interested in, Jane Austen July, and then the Summer Ween, where you read like spooky or thriller books. I wanted to participate in those two as well. But come to find out, the prompts for the TBR-athon, the deck of TBR-athon, literally include one of the, I think it was like the card number 2, where it was like, or yeah, one of the cards, where it was like literally read a book for the Summer Ween event or read a book for Jane Austen July. So all that to say, the first book that I read was for Jane Austen July, when I got the number 2 here, and I read, I'm going to turn this around a little bit so you can see better, a illustrated biography of Jane Austen. This is The Library of Luminaries, Jane Austen, an illustrated biography by Zena Alkayat and Nina Cosford. And the style is pretty much this cover here, where it's like this, like kind of like watercolor with drawings. And I really liked it. It was, I think it was like 50 or 100, because you have to read it at least 50% of the book, and it has to be at least 50 pages. And I want to say this was like, I can't remember if it was like 55 or 100 pages with the illustrations and the text. But it gave you a pretty good idea of her life. It was interesting to see the drawings connected with the different people. You know, if you read a biography, you always hear her mention like she came from a pretty big family. She had lots of brothers, so seeing like little illustrations of them was kind of neat. And so yeah, I liked it for that. And I wanted a quick like jump start into the reading event. And then the next one I read, this picture I took for all up and down, is I drew card number 6, and I read One Woman's West, Recollections of the Oregon Trail and Settling the Northwest Country by Martha Gay Masterson, 1838 to 1916. And in this one, Martha Gay Masterson, she and her brother, I think, both had written a journal as they were moving from the east to the west over the Oregon Trail, and then she kept a journal after the fact. And so this is a kind of like a memoir in a way of gathering both her brother and her journal, and you know, making sense of the timeline of things. So I thought that was an interesting take on it, and it's edited by Louise Barton, and she you know, compiled into more of a memoir style. But oh my goodness, Martha led a very interesting life, because she moved, you know, with this huge move with her family to the Oregon Territory at the time, and then they moved around a lot. Like they moved from like the Salem and Albany, Oregon, and then they moved down to Eugene and then into the mountain part. And then when she got married, her husband moved around so much. It even talks about how in Martha's diaries, the editor was talking about how she didn't even call her husband by her name or had any fondness in any of her writings, really. It was always like, you know, the husband this, the husband that kind of thing. But they moved around a lot, all over like eastern Oregon, into like the desert side of things, into Washington, over onto the coast, and then way up in Idaho and Coeur d'Alene and Spokane, and they were just all over the place, following, you know, what was happening of the day. Like her husband seemed to want like the get rich quick kind of schemes, in a sense of like, you know, there's mining happening up in Idaho, or you know, different things like that. It was just following this trail of constantly trying to get to these boom towns, but he seemed to arrive every single time when they're turning into ghost towns. But yeah, it was really interesting to see her journey, and how her journey didn't just end after, because the first fourth of this book is her moving from the east to the west, and so it's not just that, like they were just zigzagging all over the place, you know, forevermore it seemed. And then the next book I read was The Secret Garden, and this was prompted by the card number 7, an illustrated edition. And I read this particularly because I saw the illustrated edition, and this is like a watercolor kind of drawing, and I really liked the cover, but when it came to the illustrations inside, I didn't love it as much. I've seen prettier editions of The Secret Garden, like the illustrated editions, and I probably would have, this I read as an ebook, but I for sure would want to buy one of the prettier editions. But this like kind of like abstract in a way watercolor I don't know, it didn't suit my style of what I like in art. Not that I can draw any of it, but I did like the watercolor look of these wildflowers here. Oh yeah, I didn't know about the book at all, but this is following a young girl who she grew up in India and with a completely different culture than when her parents died. She goes off to stay with her uncle in this huge house where she's told to stay away, basically to stay in her room, stay away from it, don't bother anyone. And she tries to get used to the life on the moors, and things happen, and she finds a secret garden that helps her find her joy in life, because you know she had so much tragedy as a young kid, and she her attitude, she is very much like a prima donna kind of thing, because she was used to being waited on and didn't have any parental leadership at all as a young kid. So she was like basically a brat, for lack of a better word. And so it's just her getting used and like acclimated to being around other people and being polite. And so along with that, it was like she was like regaining her health through being outside. All that to say, this is a book I haven't reread in a long time. I read it as a kid multiple times. I want to say I read it at least twice before this, but probably both times was when I was a kid. And so reading it now as an adult, the one thing that was annoying me was this this whole like greater morals of, oh, I cannot tell you how many times I read, oh, you know, she's going outside and she's regaining her health, regaining her strength. It was constantly mentioned. It was like beating over the head kind of thing. So that was a bit annoying, but the story itself was charming enough. And then I drew card number 9, and I wish I wrote down what each prompt was. But yeah, there's a whole like website for the different prompts, and I'm sure when I leave the link in the description below to the hosts, their videos will take you to, if you're interested in this, joining in late maybe, into what the different prompts were. But I'll have to think about the next week if I can remember to do that. But I drew card number 9, and that led me to pick Bewitched, Bothered, and Biscotti by Bailey Cates. I think the card number 9 was something to do with series, because I just started the first book in the series last month, and I really enjoyed the reread, and so I want to continue on. And this is book number 2 in the Magical Bakery series. And this is following Katie Lightfoot, and she's in Savannah, getting used to running a family bakery. And she's like these magical powers, these herbal powers, where she's, you know, using the spices and stuff in her baking, and that's like prompting different things. And so it was a fun time to read that one. And then this is the book where I read 50%. This is card number 7, and I chose Charles Portis's The Dog of the South. And this along with The One Woman in the West are leftover books that I wanted to get to for the June on the Range readathon. But I was traveling so much of the month that I didn't get to all the books that I wanted to that month. So these are rollovers. And Charles Portis wrote True Grit. And so I was listening to this on audio. And it was just the audio format that I didn't care for, because the description sounded very funny. It was about a man who, his wife or ex-wife, was taking off to Mexico, so he was following her, and all these different things were happening. And just the audiobook, it wasn't funny for me because the audiobook was so annoying. So I want to read this as a physical book or ebook with my eyeballs. So I read 50% of the audiobook, so I'm counting it that way. Even though I didn't complete it. And so I'll do a better review once I actually read the book. But I really liked True Grit. I read that a number of years ago, and it stuck with me. The next card I drew was number 8. And I read Little City by the Lake, The Caroline Years by Celia Wilkins. Maybe this one was one of the series. I can't remember. One of the series prompts, because each card had a completely different category. And so you got different points for each one. And so I also included a picture of the bookmark I have to make the most of what we have. There's a quote from Laura Ingalls Wilder that I got in DeSmet, South Dakota, when I visited her homestead there a couple of years ago. And so this one is following the Caroline Years, where Caroline is the mother of Laura Ingalls, and she goes off to college in Milwaukee. And so that was very interesting to see how, and this is, I think, book number 6 or 7 in the series. There's only one more after this. And so it's been interesting to see her journey through these like, small towns. And then all of a sudden, you know, as she's 16, she goes to Milwaukee and visits her aunt and uncle. and a completely different lifestyle there. And it was interesting, like a time capsule in a way of what Milwaukee was like during that time. So that part was my favorite of reading this book. And then I drew card number 4, and I read The Enchanted. And this is a book off my shelf. It's a slim little book. It's the classic romance of the American Earth by Elizabeth Coatsworth. And this was it's just not my cup of tea. It's like a fairy tale kind of story. And it's where a man, he gets enchanted, not enchanted, you know what I mean? Oh, I'm like making fun of the title here. But he gets enamored by living in the forest. And when he finds his little settlement there, the forest around him is called the Enchanted. And so he there's like no one really around except the local village people, and there's this family that he really admires and gets to know, and was a romance with one of them. And there's a whole fairy tale involved where they're not what they seem. They all disappear, and he's like, well, where do they go? But then it's like a Grimm's fairy tale kind of thing, and it just left me cold. Fairy tales don't really they're just not for me. I can read them if I have to, kind of thing. I know, you know, the mainstream majority of the fairy tales, I feel like, but just through growing up, you know, reading the different fairy tales in school, in elementary school as a little kid, and you know, watching the Disney movies, those kind of things. But it's not something I dig into. And so I wish I would have known. It was more clear that it was a fairy tale, but it wasn't. So luckily, this book, I think, was like 150 pages. It was pretty small, so I was able to get through it pretty quick, and I didn't pay much money. I think I paid like $1.50 for it. So okay, then let's see. The next one I read I drew card number 7. This week I got so many. I got 3 7s. There's only 4 7s in this whole deck of cards, but I got 3 of them this week. And what's the other one? 7s. I feel like 2s I got quite a bit of. But anyway, so I got card number 7, and that was Daisies for Innocence by Bailey Cottrell. It's the first book in the Enchanted Garden mystery. Speaking of Enchanted, like the other book, this one I read because Bailey Cottrell is a different name for Bailey Cates. And so I really like this series, so I wanted to give her other series a try. And this one is following a woman who is running a perfumery, and she recently divorced her husband because he was cheating on her. And now he has a new girlfriend that just so happens to be a woman that is an assistant for her perfumery shop. And so, of course, she's looked at as the bad guy, or the probable suspect, because, you know, of course, she would have this anger towards her ex-husband's new girlfriend, but she doesn't. She had no animosity because she just found out like that the morning or the day before. And she worked with her, and so she didn't have this, you know, she just found out, so she wasn't, you know, that angry or whatever by it. It wasn't like she was going to go kill her. And so it took off from there. And this just didn't have, it didn't pull me through the story, basically. I was kind of bored, and it was just lackluster a bit compared to the other series that I liked much, much more. But yeah, and this took place in the Gold Country in California. I used to live in that area, and so it was fun to read about that. But the story itself was just, it was just okay. I just have a couple more. I read, yeah, because again, competing with myself here, I'm like, I'm gonna read all the books. And so I have been, but I've been trying to restrict myself to like something like 350 pages or less. That way I can get through a lot of them, because I want to get through these cards. So I'm not reading like all children's books, but you know, shorter books so I can like zip through them. We have River Walking by Kathleen Dean Moore, and I got the card, you know, Jack. And I remember this one for this prompt in particular. It was read a book with July, or read a book with one word in the title, and I can't remember what the other one was. Maybe something with a summer theme. But for this one, I picked River Walking. It was one word. And so this is about a woman who is a nonfiction book, and she teaches at a local Oregon university. I can't remember which one. And so, but what was interesting about this is she's a philosophy teacher at an Oregon university, and she also loves spending time outdoors. And so this is philosophizing about her life and going through different going through grief and tragedy and just her normal day-to-day life out in the nature. So each chapter is a different river that she's either fishing on or walking by or floating on, something like that. And so you have, and then she's philosophizing about the nature around it. So it was an amalgamation of many different things in this book, and it was just okay for me. I don't really get on too much with lots of philosophy, but it was what it was. And then I read a fun book, a trashy book. This is number 2. I drew card number 2, and this is Beach Party by R.L. Stine. And I think I got this for Summerween, I think is why, because the first book I got was Jane Austen, July. And then for the next time I drew this card, I wanted to pick something for the Summerween reading event. And this is Some Come to Party, Some Come to Die. And this is about a girl who is invited her friend who is back visiting her hometown. She moved away to New York. And so she's going to have a fun time at the beach in Venice Beach and Santa Monica in the Los Angeles area. And so that part, I like. Another place I used to live, and I used to bike along the Venice Beach boardwalk. It's a long sidewalk that waves its way through, and there's lots of shops on one side. So it's a fun place to visit in Santa Monica, as well as the famous Santa Monica Pier. But outside of those memories, this book, the plot was so threadbare. It was so unbelievable. That's why I'm calling it, a completely trashy book, because her friend comes to visit the town, and they're having fun at the beach, which is all fun and well. But she meets multiple guys that she's interested in, and they're both really wrong for her. One of them is currently in a relationship with someone else, and the other one is like a bad boy and a gang leader. So, and then the story just jumps off from there into Never Land. It was like this completely unbelievable what happens after that. But yeah, this was okay. And then the last one I just finished up today. I drew card number 4, and I picked Merry and Bright by Terry Wilson. This is the last book in her Love Unveiled series. And so this is following a wedding magazine in New York City, and this book in particular is book number 3, the final book in the series, I think. I haven't seen this. These books came out in 2023, and I haven't seen anything else following this, but I feel like there's potential for more in this series. But Terry Wilson is an author I really like. She has these like cute, charming romance, rom-com kind of books. And so you're following a wedding magazine, and so this is the main character in this one is wanting to be the editor-in-chief, and she's been working her butt off basically all of her life to get to this point. And right when it's in her grasp, the owner decides to mix things up, and you're not guaranteed this position. I am pulling in my never before mentioned nephew, who happens to be an editor in a French magazine. So now you two are going to compete to see who becomes the editor-in-chief. And it takes place in Christmas, and so they have a whole month to design the December issue, and so they get thrown together, and it's like an enemies to lovers kind of story. And it was just so charming, like in New York at Christmas, and you're at these really nice fancy hotels and parties with like there's snow, and they're talking about snow globes, and it's just all the whimsy and all the special things of like New York at Christmas. And so yeah, I really liked it for that. I feel like Terry Wilson has yet to write a bad book, and so it was just nice and sweet to finish up my week of reading. So yeah, there you go. Well, again, we'll see what I do next week. I'm gonna try and remember to write down what the prompts, what these cards mean, and which prompt I picked for each one, because I wrote down which point I had for each, but I didn't write down what they meant. So I think that'll add something to my videos. So yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.